The moment I died on that rainy night in the alley, I opened my eyes and found myself back in the past. Bro, this is my roommate. My younger brother's voice rang in my ears, and just like that, I was standing in front of Benjamin, the first time we met. I froze, my mind snapping back into focus, and when I looked up, I saw those eyes. Deep, dark, and bottomless, like a black lake. But those weren't the eyes of the 18-year-old Benjamin I once knew. They belonged to the man he became 3 years later. That's when I realized he was reborn too. A chill ran down my spine before I could even think. After my career was completely destroyed, Benjamin kept me by his side. He locked me up, stripped away my pride, and broke me bit by bit. I tried to escape, but when he caught me, all that awaited me was darkness. Days of isolation, forced medication, withdrawal treatments. Eventually, I got sick. So sick that I couldn't live without him anymore. I never understood why he said he didn't love me, yet refused to let me go. Even when I was dying, he was attending his engagement banquet, smiling, toasting as if I never existed. I tore my gaze away from him and handed the key in my hand to my brother. All right, you and your roommate get along well, okay? I've got things to do. I turned to leave, but behind me came a trembling voice, almost a sob. Alex, brother, can I add you on WeChat? I stopped and finally looked at him properly. He was crying. Tears rolled down his cheeks, heavy and silent as he tried to hold himself together. I glanced at him lightly, pretending to be confused, as if I'd just met him for the first time. Sorry, I said coldly. I don't add strangers. Back then, time didn't exist for me in the darkness. Every day was endless silence and loneliness, until the 10 minutes when Benjamin appeared. Those 10 minutes were the only time I ever felt alive. Now I lowered my head again, my soul trembling with fear, and hurriedly left. But his tear-filled eyes wouldn't leave my mind. Was he mourning my death from the previous life? How ridiculous. I told myself it didn't matter. I'd come back to the past. None of it had happened yet. Now, I stood in my office at the top floor of the tallest building in the district. From here, I could see the entire business center below. Little by little, I was reclaiming the freedom I'd lost. Freedom. But in the depths of my mind, those memories, those nights of darkness and despair, kept replaying again and again. When I learned about Benjamin's family situation, how poor they were, and that he had a disabled younger sister to take care of, a dangerous thought crossed my mind. I wanted to keep him. At first he refused, but when I promised to pay for his sister's treatment, he finally agreed. And from there, things moved quickly. Kissing, nights in bed, a year of being his sponsor, his benefactor, as people like to say. But I had fallen for him, truly, deeply fallen. Benjamin, though, he always kept his distance. Always pretending to be proud and self-righteous, as if sleeping with me hadn't tainted that perfect image of his. I didn't mind. As long as he came to me at night, passionate, breathless, that was enough. If I was being honest, I treated him well. More than well. I introduced him to my connections, shared my resources, helped him meet the right people in the industry. Whatever he needed, I gave. So why did he have to destroy me completely in the end? Turning straight men gay might be shameful in his eyes, but it's not like I didn't pay him. By the second year, things between us had softened. He was rising fast in his career, and I was proud. Having him by my side made me look even better. I used to wrap my arm around him, tracing the perfect lines of his face. I liked biting the curve of his throat, teasing that tiny mole above his collarbone. I still remember that night clearly. Half drunk, half laughing, I asked him, "Tell me, Benjamin, once you make it big, are you just going to throw brother away?" He narrowed his eyes slightly, his dark pupils drifting toward me as he whispered, "I won't, as long as you still want me, brother. I'll always, always be yours." At the time, I thought he was just being sweet. His words melted like honey in my ears. But to me, there was never such a thing as forever. I'm a hopeless pessimist. I've always known, when a kite flies too high, the string will snap eventually. So I thought, why not be the one to let go first? A sharp pain pulsed through my head, and I pressed a hand to my temple. From that moment on, everything started to spiral out of control. Then, a knock on the door. I rubbed my forehead and said tiredly, "Come in." Footsteps followed. Slow, unhurried. I froze. After that week of darkness and silence, I had learned to recognize Benjamin's footsteps, like a trained pet recognizing its master. Without looking up, I spoke coldly, "Get out! What are you doing here?" Benjamin crouched down beside me, gently taking my hand from my forehead and replacing it with his own. He'd learned this technique back then because I often suffered from headaches. He'd studied how to ease the pain. And during those days when he kept me locked up, he used to do this to coax me to sleep. I looked up, meeting his dark, bottomless gaze. "We have a second chance. Let's go our separate ways from now on. Can we agree to that?" My voice trembled, my body shaking with fear I couldn't suppress. It wasn't a demand. It was a plea. The air grew heavy. Benjamin stayed silent, staring at me. Then tears fell again, one by one, glistening as the air seemed to freeze around us. Pain flickered across his eyes as he whispered, "Brother, you're the one who brought me onto this path. I won't let you go. But if we start over, if we stay together properly this time, wouldn't that be better?" I knew it. He still hated me. Everything he did was his revenge. My mind broke. I slammed my hand across the desk, sending papers and files scattering across the floor. "You're insane!" I shouted. "You can't control me anymore. I'll run, far away from you." Benjamin's expression twisted in pain as he reached out, caressing my face. What was he hurting for? Why did he look like the one suffering? When I was the one who'd lost everything. But I was too exhausted to fight back. My strength failed me, and I collapsed into his arms. He held me tightly, rubbing my back, his voice calm and low. "Inhale. Exhale slowly. Breathe in. That's it." After 2 weeks of confinement, I'd developed this problem. Whenever my emotions ran too high, I'd forget how to breathe. The doctors said it was because I'd lost my will to survive. Benjamin had laughed coldly back then. "Stop pretending, brother. You're a powerful CEO, swimming in wealth. How could someone like you not want to live?" But it was him. He was the one who destroyed everything I had built. He turned me into something less than human, a broken thing crawling at his feet. My vision blurred. Tears streamed down my cheeks, warm and soundless. As my breathing steadied, I looked at him again. He leaned close, whispering slowly against my ear, "Brother, as long as we stay together like this, I promise, the things that happened in our last life will never happen again. All right?" I knew this was the biggest compromise Benjamin could make. In our last life, I never managed to escape. He had connections in the black market. He'd even developed a special bracelet. If I dared to run more than 30 meters from him, it would shock me. The farther I went, the worse it got. Only Benjamin could deactivate it. Every time he had to leave for business, he'd replace it with another, one that tracked my vitals. Sometimes even the smallest thought of rebellion would bring him back that very night. I turned my face away, refusing to look at him. I had to fight this fate that bound us together. If I couldn't win against him, then I'd have to escape. As Benjamin slowly walked out of my office, calm and composed, I saw in his retreating back a reflection of my own shattered self. The man who had once given up everything, left with nothing but the instinct to run. And I couldn't help but wonder, how did everything end up like this? Back when my company was on the rise, I'd already picked up plenty of bad habits. Stomach ulcers, migraines, all from overwork. Benjamin was always hovering nearby. He'd watch me eat, remind me to take my pills at night, making sure I didn't skip meals or medicine. But that night, my stomach hurt so badly I could barely breathe. I called him, once, twice, over and over, no answer. I had people keeping an eye on him. When I asked, they hesitated before replying. "Mr. Benjamin, he's at Maybar. He ordered 2 women. I didn't feel angry, just empty, like something I'd already expected long ago. The sharp pain in my stomach nearly brought me to tears, but my pride whispered to me, "Don't make a scene." If Benjamin was really going to betray me, then I'd end it myself before he could. That night, I swallowed a handful of painkillers, straightened up my shirt, and forced myself to look composed. Then I went to see him, to end things properly. Strangely, I wasn't even furious. Somewhere deep down, I thought, Benjamin had always been straight. He wasn't that poor boy I once kept under my wing anymore. Maybe he just wanted to know what being with a woman felt like. When I arrived at the bar, I couldn't bring myself to step out of the car. 2 years. We'd been together for 2 years. So much tied between us, too much to sever cleanly, too much to keep without disgust. But like a ghost, I still walked toward the private room. Part of me still clung to hope. If Benjamin could give me one good explanation, maybe, I wouldn't end it tonight. But before I could even open the door, his voice shattered that fragile illusion. If I hadn't forced myself to endure that disgusting life with Alex Lee, how could I have achieved everything I have today? The voice was his. But the words sounded like they came from a stranger. My hand froze on the doorknob. Every ounce of courage drained from my body. So that's what he thought of me? Being with me was enduring disgust. Serving me, all my love, all my devotion, in his eyes it was filthy. After that night, I brought it up many times. Every time I did, Benjamin would pause, then suddenly drop to his knees. He'd say it was his fault, that he'd been too young, too proud, that he hadn't understood my feelings. But what I wanted to hear was that he regretted it enough to let me go. Instead, he looked me in the eye and said plainly, "That's impossible." I went home that night and started throwing out everything he'd ever left behind. I've never been the type to wallow in self-pity. If I could build an empire with my own two hands, I could destroy the things that hurt me just as easily. Finding another man like him? That wouldn't be hard. I signed a check for $10 million and handed it to my assistant. Breakup fee. Tell Benjamin, we're done. By then, Benjamin had his own network, his own power. His sister's leg had long been healed. He didn't need me anymore. There was nothing left binding us together. I packed my things, looked around the apartment that once held our memories, and walked away, leaving only a wrecked, empty home behind. Benjamin came looking for me several times after that, but I refused to see him. And soon after, I met someone new. Someone who looked exactly like my type. They say, once bitten by a snake, you'll fear even the rope for 10 years. But I've never believed in that kind of saying. Did I really think I could raise another wolf like Benjamin? And yet, like a fool who never learns, I went and kept another man. He wasn't exactly the same, but his eyes, those slightly upturned corners, they reminded me of Benjamin. This time, though, I'd learned my lesson. I didn't put in my heart, only my money. It was a transaction, nothing more. Before we even took that final step, he clung to my arm and said sweetly, "Brother Alex, take me to London, please?" I hesitated. He'd probably seen the old photos, me and Benjamin in London. Maybe he was jealous. He looked up at me carefully, his voice small. "Brother Alex, you haven't forgotten him, have you?" "Forgotten Benjamin?" I almost laughed. "Forgotten? He was carved into my bones." So I waved my hand, opened my phone, and booked 2 first-class tickets to London on the spot. I'd show everyone, that Benjamin was nothing but the past. My life wouldn't end because of one man. But the night before our flight, my lover got into trouble. A message came. "If you want to save your little lover, come to the auto repair shop." The auto repair shop. The place I'd met Benjamin for the second time. The place where we'd shared our first kiss. I didn't need to think twice. I knew Benjamin was behind this plot. Honestly, this kind of lover wasn't important enough for me to rescue personally. But I was driven by a sheer desire to spite Benjamin. He didn't want me to go, so I absolutely had to. The moment I arrived, someone dragged out a body and threw it at my feet. He was covered in blood, his face cut so badly it was barely recognizable. Even those eyes that once slanted upward were now swollen and bruised flat. He reeked of filth and fear. And there he was, Benjamin, standing in the shadows. My lover whimpered weakly through tears. "Brother Alex, please, they're going to kill me. Help me." Benjamin chuckled, a cruel sound that sliced through the air. "Brother Alex, really? You chose this kind of man? What a coward." I remembered. Back when we were together, Benjamin had once been kidnapped by my business rivals, but he fought his way out, bleeding and furious, dragging 2 witnesses with him. He crushed them in court. For me. Now, I looked at the wolf in front of me and realized just how dangerous he truly was. I bent down and gently brushed the blood from my lover's face, leaning closer as if to kiss him. Benjamin moved instantly, grabbing me by the neck, pulling me violently into his arms. He buried his face in the crook of my neck, his voice trembling with anger. "Alex, why would you kiss him? He's filthy. You won't see me, won't talk to me for days, but you'll come running the moment he's here. Don't look at him. Don't touch him." His voice was raw, desperate, and for a moment I almost saw the boy he once was. But in my head, his cruel words from that bar replayed over and over. If I hadn't forced myself to endure that disgusting life with Alex Lee, how could I have my success today? I smiled faintly. "Why? Do we still have something between us? Tell me, Benjamin. Were women fun?" His face froze. He stammered. I don't know what you're talking about." I didn't. My hand moved before I even thought, a sharp, ringing slap across his face. He looked stunned, unable to believe it. "Benjamin, it's over. That slap is for touching what's mine." I hadn't realized how dangerous this was, coming alone to face him again. His hand clamped around me like a vice. He gestured for his men to take my lover away. I snapped, glaring at him. "Don't touch him." Benjamin's face twisted, distorted by something dark and wild. He pressed his forehead against my neck and inhaled deeply. "Brother Alex, don't end this. Please, let's go back to how we were. Please." How strange. He was the one who'd once said he found me disgusting, and now he was the one begging not to lose me. Why did everything have to happen on his terms? I grabbed a fistful of his hair and yanked his head back. "Are you joking? I'm the one who doesn't want you anymore. Got it? You think you're irreplaceable? Do you know how many men I could have?" His eyes went dark, feral. Something in them cracked. "So that's it? You're saying you'll go find other men?" He laughed softly, brokenly. "Brother Alex, you'll come back to me. You always do." He let me go, taking a few steps back. I reached out for my lover, but Benjamin only smiled faintly. "I'll send him back safely," he said. Calm, too calm. As I turned to leave, I glanced over my shoulder. Benjamin stood in the darkness, his eyes locked on me, wild, unblinking, like a madman waiting for the next chance to strike. When the little lover finally returned, his entire face was thoroughly ruined. He was shaking and crying. I paid him off with money. He later got plastic surgery and seemed to be doing reasonably well afterward. I tried to find a few more lovers, but every single man I showed the slightest interest in would inevitably run into trouble. Furious, I went straight to Benjamin's door. "What the hell are you doing? It has nothing to do with you. If you touch my people again, I'll expose the fact that I used to be your sugar daddy." Benjamin was now a rising star in the business world, focusing on AI. Even the government was funding his work. No one dared to offend him. I was powerless against him. My industry had nothing to do with his, so the only thing I could threaten him with was the old scandal of our transactional relationship. He actually laughed. "Go ahead. All the better if it scares those men away from even trying to seduce my Alex brother." If I had known he would completely destroy my entire industry later, I would have used every means necessary to crush him then and there. But I never took the man who had shared my bed for years seriously. Until his company developed a new high-efficiency machine. It boosted factory efficiency by 60% compared to mine. All my major business partners practically terminated their contracts, and Benjamin was even behind the scenes paying the penalty fees. I couldn't believe Benjamin would attack me like this. Left with no choice, I had to resort to drastic measures to survive. I had more than one industry, but this onslaught still bled me dry. But I never anticipated the full scope of Benjamin's targeted attacks. He specifically pursued my projects, willing to outbid me even at a loss. I watched as my company's capital chain slowly snapped. The secretary who had been with me for years even betrayed me. I finally went to see Benjamin. He looked like he had been waiting for me, and standing behind him was my former secretary. "Benjamin, what exactly do you want?" He walked over slowly and deliberately, reaching out to embrace me. "I just want brother to realize that they only liked you for your money. But whether you have money or not, I love you." Who the hell wants his love? I violently threw a punch. Damn it, the frustrations of the past few days were completely unleashed. Benjamin didn't fight back. I hit him hard, and it felt satisfying. After I finished, while I was gasping for air, Benjamin quickly injected me with a needle. I collapsed weakly, gazing at his eyes, which shone with a dark, obscure intensity. I truly wished I had never met him. When that needle went in, I fully expected to go meet my great-grandmother. Instead, I was merely locked up by Benjamin. I knew Benjamin had connections in the underworld. Murder wouldn't have been a difficult problem for him to handle. The next time he appeared before me, he brought a phone showing the news. My company had officially declared bankruptcy. My commercial empire was utterly destroyed. Benjamin embraced me, mumbling incoherently, "Brother Alex, it's all your fault. All your fault for tempting me." My heart was filled with absolute despair. I regretted everything. Regretted the day I added his WeChat. Regretted insisting on pursuing him. He hated me for turning him gay and retaliated for my subsequent change of heart. Later, I tried to escape countless times. Only once did I succeed. That day, Benjamin explained that he needed to play along for business and was getting engaged to a woman. I seized that opportunity and ran. But Benjamin and his men quickly tracked me down. He was wearing a formal suit with a white flower pinned to his lapel. I was cornered on a rooftop. I stood right at the edge. I hadn't actually planned to jump, but it was raining, and the edge was slick. My foot slipped, and I fell. I fell, looking up and seeing Benjamin's eyes wide with disbelief, hearing his voice choked with tears as he screamed my name. When I landed in the alley, I wasn't quite dead yet. I was faintly aware of doctors trying to save me. The next time I opened my eyes, I was back to the first time I met Benjamin. But if I had known I could return to this moment, I would have died sooner. President Lee, this is the cooperation contract with Shufei Technologies. Please sign it. I looked up at my secretary, the same man who, in my previous life, would eventually betray me. I understood that everyone acts in their own interest, but he had worked for me for 5 years. How could he betray me? Taking the contract, I studied it for a long moment before asking, Secretary Chen, have you been unhappy with anything lately? Chen Yi looked startled. Working under President Lee has been the greatest honor of my career. I have no complaints at all. So, his betrayal must happen 2 years from now. Still, I couldn't help feeling irritated, restless, like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, tempted to just let everything crash. And that's when I received a message from Benjamin. I didn't even know how he got my number. Brother, don't panic. This time I won't do anything bad. Can I pursue you properly? Pursue me? Who did he think he was fooling? I slammed my fingers on the keyboard and typed furiously, Get lost. Are you a dog or what? If Benjamin really were a dog, I'd have beaten him to death long ago. His reply came almost instantly. Woof. I'm brother's little dog. Shameless. Absolutely shameless. And the worst part was, there was nothing I could do about him. He just wouldn't stop. Every single day, a fresh bouquet of flowers appeared on my office desk. Out of sheer frustration, I stationed 3 bodyguards at my door, day and night. But that afternoon, Benjamin came in person. He walked in holding flowers in his left hand and a contract in his right. Carefully, he placed the flowers down, his upturned eyes full of pitiful sweetness. Brother Alex, could you take a look at this? He set the contract beside me. I didn't respond. Instead, he started humming a tune and decorating my office, arranging those damned flowers everywhere. When he finally stuck the last one into my trophy, I snapped. Benjamin, that's enough! He smiled and stepped closer. And even though I wanted to push him away, my body reacted instinctively. That dangerous, familiar pull to get close to him, to please him. He slid the contract right in front of me. Across the top, the title read, Technology Sharing Agreement. I flipped through it in disbelief. According to it, Benjamin was transferring a key technology, giving me 99% of the profit share, leaving only 1% for himself. This was the same technology he had once used to destroy my entire business empire. Even after I'd made major improvements since my rebirth, this was still handing me his core advantage on a silver platter. I stared at him, unable to believe what I was reading. Benjamin's eyes curved as he smiled gently at me. Brother Alex, I really won't do those things again. Can you forgive me? I gripped the contract tightly. Why was he doing this? My voice came out cautious, wary. Why? He hesitated, his expression twisting in quiet pain. There's no reason, he said softly. As long as you're alive in this world, that's enough for me. His eyes, those dark, desperate eyes that looked at me like I was the only thing keeping him breathing, made me falter for just a moment. I didn't understand him. I never had. But maybe, facing a lunatic like Benjamin, I had to think like one too. Because in his mind, locking me up, breaking me, making me depend on him completely, that was love. That was how he showed affection. And maybe, in his twisted world, he truly believed that was enough. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to finally ask the question that had haunted me for so long. Benjamin, do you hate me for pulling you onto this path? Benjamin looked at me quietly, his gaze deep and steady. How could I? He said softly. I only hate that you didn't love me enough. His words struck something inside me. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. What had changed him so much in this life? The Benjamin standing in front of me wasn't the same cruel man who once ruined me. I thought back to the day we met again, his tear-streaked face trembling as if terrified I would vanish. The thought that had been lingering in my mind spilled out before I could stop it. Benjamin, after I died, did you come back right away? He went silent for a long time, then shook his head slowly. No, he murmured. I walked a long, long road before I finally saw you again. My chest tightened painfully, that familiar ache spreading like fire beneath my ribs. A long road. So he really did die too. Benjamin, I said quietly, go for now. I need a few days to think. The office fell into complete silence after he left. I sat there staring at nothing, my mind spinning faster than I could control. Known, you have to die to go back to the past. Conclusion, Benjamin must have died too. But how? Who would dare kill Benjamin? No one, unless he'd done it himself. Could it be suicide? For me, I shook my head. The thought sounded insane, but then again, so was he. A man like Benjamin was more than capable of something that extreme. He said he'd walked a long road before seeing me again. That meant, after my death, he lived for a while without me. No wonder, when he saw me again, his eyes were full of tears. No wonder he'd changed so much. No wonder he swore he'd never repeat his mistakes. My vision blurred as tears suddenly fell, landing with a dull thud on the cover of the contract in front of me. I felt like an idiot, baring my heart again because somewhere deep down, I realized he might have died just to find me. It was suffocating, bitter, confusing, yet somehow painfully warm. Still, I couldn't completely trust him. What if this was just another trap, another one of Benjamin's carefully crafted games? I wiped my tears, steadied my breathing, and picked up the pen. Whatever this was, truth or illusion, love or manipulation, I'd find out myself. And so I signed the contract. Whatever comes next, I'll face it. For the next few days, Benjamin really didn't show up in front of me, but the flowers kept coming. Every morning, without fail, a fresh bouquet would appear on my desk. A silent reminder that even if I couldn't see him, he was still watching. I had no time to deal with it. Most of my focus was on renegotiating compensation with our business partners. I raised the breach penalty by tenfold. The middle-aged men across the table wiped the sweat from their foreheads, forcing smiles. "President Lee," one of them said nervously, "you really don't trust us old partners that much? We've been loyal to your company for years. There's no need to guard against us so harshly. We would never terminate the contract." Right. Tell that to someone who hadn't lived through betrayal once already. In my previous life, the moment Benjamin offered them a slightly higher profit share, these same men wagged their tails and ran straight to him. I crossed my arms, tilting my head just slightly, my tone calm but sharp. "This is the condition," I said. "It's not negotiable." The truth was, our company offered them the most stable partnership at a perfectly fair price. They'd be fools to walk away. The men exchanged uneasy glances, hesitated, then opened their mouths to protest again. I cut them off lazily, tapping the table with my pen. "What's the matter? Does your company no longer value honesty in business?" That shut them up. One by one, they lowered their heads and signed the contract, with that sky-high penalty clause intact. And just like that, things started to shift. Bit by bit, the company grew steadier, and bit by bit, I began to crawl out of the shadow Benjamin had left behind. For the first time in a long while, my days passed quietly, peacefully, until fate decided to throw me a curveball. One afternoon, I ran into someone I hadn't expected to see, the little lover from my previous life, the one whose face Benjamin had once beaten beyond recognition. Now, he looked radiant. He was laughing, holding someone else's hand, the sunlight falling across his face. For a moment, I just stood there, frozen. And for the first time, it really hit me. I had truly come back to the past. Maybe Benjamin and I really did have a chance to change how everything ended. But I must have stared too long because he suddenly stopped and turned toward me. "Hi," he said, smiling politely. "Do I know you?" I opened my mouth to answer, but then my vision suddenly went dark. A large, warm hand covered my eyes, blocking my view. And beside me came Benjamin's cool, low voice. "It's nothing," he said to the man, his tone polite but sharp. "You just look like an old acquaintance of ours." Then, leaning closer, his breath brushed against my ear as he whispered in a quiet, possessive murmur, "Don't look at him. So domineering." When he finally moved his hand away, my sight returned, and there he was. Benjamin, standing in the sunlight, his hair now dyed a pale platinum blonde, faintly curled at the tips. It shimmered like spun gold, glinting with light every time he moved. He looked bright, almost like a golden retriever bathed in sunlight, warm, radiant, infuriatingly charming. I stared at him, caught off guard, trying my best not to let it show. "When did you dye your hair?" I muttered. Benjamin grinned and took my hand, placing it on his head. "Do you like it?" he asked softly. I turned my head away, my ears burning. Of course I'd fallen for his looks first. That much I'd always known. And in my past life, I'd regretted it 1,000 times. There's a saying, beauty is a blade that cuts deep. And that blade had pierced me straight through the heart once before. Benjamin smiled wider when he saw my face turning red. He laced his fingers through mine, tugging gently. "Brother Alex," he said playfully, "let me take you somewhere." I sighed. I didn't want to go anywhere with him, but his grip was firm, and with that golden hair and bright, youthful smile, he looked every bit the college boy he used to be. Impossible to resist. So, despite myself, I followed him into the car. Looking at him now, he was nothing like the poor boy I'd once known. His suit was perfectly tailored, his watch gleaming under the sun. I couldn't help the sarcasm in my voice. "So you've made it big now?" He hesitated for a second, then glanced at me carefully. "My sister's surgery is paid for now. I don't have to worry about that anymore. The rest of the money, I'll give it all to you, brother. You can take care of it for me." Take care of his money? Only partners share finances. Was I Benjamin's partner? The audacity of him even saying that. I rolled my eyes and rejected him outright. No way was I giving him the satisfaction. Benjamin's shoulders drooped, his eyes dimming with visible disappointment. I reached out and tugged gently on his newly dyed platinum hair. "Come on, hurry up." He pressed his foot on the gas, driving us through winding mountain roads. Something about this route felt strangely familiar. When we finally arrived, I froze. It was the same villa Benjamin had locked me in during my past life. My whole body went cold. Without realizing it, I began to tremble. But part of me, deep down, almost wanted to drag him into hell with me if this was another trap. "What is this?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "Can't you change? You're still the same dog who can't stop eating filth, huh? You want to lock me up again? Fine. Then I'll die in front of you again." Benjamin flinched, his expression softening into something pitiful. Then, to my shock, tears welled up in his eyes and fell silently down his cheeks. "Brother, please don't say that," he whispered hoarsely. "I can't bear to hear you say that. Just come inside with me, please?" Against every instinct screaming at me to run, I followed him inside. The room that once had been a dungeon of darkness was now filled with sunlight. Bright, warm light spilled across the polished floor, reflecting off the windows. On the sofa sat a large box. Benjamin opened it carefully. Inside were a thick black chain and a leather collar with a metal clasp. I didn't speak. I just watched him. And in that silence I realized he wasn't going to force me, not this time. He lifted the collar, and without hesitation, fastened it around his own neck. Then he picked up the chain and held it out to me, eyes steady, voice low but clear. "Brother Alex," he said, "from now on you decide my freedom. Let me be your dog. Please?" The chain caught the light, metal glinting faintly gold in the sun. I took it. It was heavy, heavier than I expected, like the weight of everything between us, love, pain, obsession, regret, tangled into something neither of us could sever. Then he handed me a small remote. "This controls the current," he said softly. "If I disobey, you can punish me." I stared at him, incredulous. Why did everything between us always have to twist into something abnormal? I let out a bitter laugh. "You really think that if I treat you the way you once treated me, we'll suddenly be fine again?" Benjamin lowered his head, the sunlight cutting across his pale face. "I don't think that," he whispered. As long as you're here, brother, I'm happy." He didn't even finish the sentence before I pressed the button, the lowest voltage. He jerked slightly, body trembling, a faint flush rising across his face. I sighed. "So it's not punishment to you, it's a reward." "Whatever." I clipped the chain onto the collar. The metal was cold against my skin, and yet somehow it burned. A numb, tingling feeling crawled up my palm as I held the chain. I turned off the device, then tilted his chin upward with my hand. "Benjamin," I said quietly, "can you let me go now?" His face stiffened. After a moment, he nodded weakly. "Yes. You're free." I smiled faintly and leaned in to press a soft kiss against his lips. "Good. Then I'll set you free too," I murmured. "Let's start over, okay?" Benjamin froze. Then, to my surprise, his composure shattered. Tears streamed down his face as he sobbed, voice breaking. "Oh, okay. I'll start over. But I want to be with you forever." He choked on his words, clutching at my sleeve like a child terrified of being left behind. And in that fragile moment, with sunlight glinting off the chain that bound us, I couldn't tell anymore who was truly holding whom. At Benjamin's insistence, I introduced him to my younger brother, as my future partner. My brother had clearly suspected it for a while. He stared at us with a mix of shock and disbelief, before blurting out, "Brother, you're really robbing the cradle here. I knew something was off between you two from the very start." I awkwardly rubbed the bridge of my nose, feeling my face heat up. Honestly, Benjamin probably planned this. just to make me embarrassed in front of my family. Benjamin, of course, looked perfectly pleased with himself. He slid an arm around my waist, grinning as he said, "Well, this counts as meeting the family, doesn't it?" That night, I woke up halfway through the night to feel Benjamin's hand moving against me, gently but with a kind of urgency. He wasn't doing it out of desire. It felt more like he was trying to make sure I was still there. I heard him mumble in a sleepy, broken whisper, "It's good. It's so good that you're still here." Then he turned over and fell back onto the bed, sound asleep. But I couldn't fall back asleep after that. There was a tightness in my chest, something sharp and heavy all at once. He was terrified of losing me. Even now. Sometimes when I went on business trips for just a few days, he'd panic so badly that he'd call me dozens of times a day. Later, I accidentally found several small bottles and pill containers inside the nightstand drawer. Different colors, different labels. He'd been taking medication. He hadn't hidden it. If anything, leaving it there so openly was deliberate. A silent confession. Still, that night, I decided to reward him. A big one. I'd stocked up on several boxes of candy, because I knew how much he hated the bitterness of his medicine. So sometimes, when we kissed at night, there would be that strange mix of flavors, the bitter aftertaste of pills and the sweetness of sugar melting on his tongue. Over the years, that taste slowly faded. The bitterness lessened, and Benjamin, he really did start to get better. The following year, I took Benjamin to London again. Some things between us had quietly changed. There was less obsession now, and more sincerity. A steady warmth that grew between us little by little. London's winter was cold that year. The streets were pale with snow, and inside the little house we rented, Benjamin and I shared a single scarf, sitting together by the fireplace. The fire crackled softly, casting a golden glow over the room as we watched a movie in silence. Outside, the world was quiet and white. Inside, I leaned into Benjamin's arm, smiling as I pressed a kiss to his throat, right where his Adam's apple moved when he breathed. Just below it, the black collar still rested around his neck. He never took it off. Benjamin lowered his head, kissed me gently, then smiled as he pulled me closer, his arms warm and steady around me. And when our eyes met, all I saw was light. His body was warm beneath my hands. Alive, real, human. And for the first time, what I felt wasn't fear or guilt or possession. It was love. Pure, endless, lasting love.